Curbside Pickup by Triscribe. Chapter 6, Playing Chicken. Peter should have known. He should have realised. Should have put two and two together. Should have known that the evening spent guiding Wanda through the insane streets of NYC would have led to this. "Do either of you even have driver's licenses?" he demanded. Barnes looked at Vision. Vision looked at Barnes. Then they both turned to look at Peter and said in a puzzled unison, "No." Peter really wished he had a pillow to scream into right about then. But there was a crowd of awed high school students at his back, so he got a grip of himself. "Okay, we gotta go, and I will yell at Mr. Stark for this later." Barnes smirked as he got into the front passenger seat, Vision walking around to the driver's side, thankfully wearing his human disguise hologram thing. "Is that even possible for you, brat?" "We'll find out," Peter grumbled, throwing first his backpack and then himself into the back seat. "Okay, put the gear selector in drive. Seat belts first," Vision interrupted. "Yes, right, seat belts first, then put... And I have downloaded all permanent information concerning vehicle operation, Peter. I understand the basic mechanics, but I'm lacking knowledgeable experience to accompany that knowledge." "Then will you just get us out of here?" Barnes grinned over his shoulder. "Sam was right. This is fun." Peter didn't dignify that with a response. "Vision, take the next left." "How soon is it appropriate to change the turn lane?" Well, they usually leave a gap in the marker pane. But it's okay if you shift a little before that, especially if there are other people ahead of you filling up the lane." "Noted." A sudden thought occurred to Peter as they were turning. "How'd you guys get here if neither of you have licenses?" "Just because I don't have modern-day piece of plastic saying I'm allowed to do doesn't mean I can't drive, brat," Barnes said idly. "Then what do you need me for?" "Same as Wanda, tour guide. Vision hasn't been around much, and I haven't been around at all since the 40s. Peter tried to feel bad for Barnes. He really did. But the fact that the man was actively participating in attempts to give him heart attacks every other Friday made it extremely difficult. "Not this intersection. It's one way, but the next one, hang a right." Vision put on his turn signal in order to change lanes, and waited. And waited. And waited. "Dude, just go. I need to wait for a suitably sized gap in the traffic to open, either by chance or a fellow driver waiting for me." Peter stared at the back of his head. "Dude, this is New York traffic. It doesn't get much more cutthroat than around here." "I'm afraid I don't follow." "No one is going to just let you in. You've got to be forceful and jump for it. Helps if you've got an older car you don't mind getting dinged occasionally, because taxicabs are brutal when it comes to playing chicken." He met the android's puzzled gaze in the rearview mirror. "Are you sure the traffic laws count for very little in New York? Trust me," Peter assured him before sighing. "Where's Clint when you need him?" "Helping Cooper's Boy Scout troop learn archery," Barnes supplied. "Of course he is." Gonna go on to the next chapter. Again, this is really short. Chapter 7, The Weird Cousins. Of all the vehicles he envisioned picking him up the next Friday, an honest-to-God minivan was not one of them. Maybe all Mr. Stark's cars exploded and they had to borrow somebody's soccer parents? Note hazarded, staring down at the text on Peter's phone. Peter could only shrug, more baffled by the text from Colonel Rhodes than he had been from the one from Tony Stark warning him about the captain. "Mr. Colonel, sir. Look for a blue minivan this afternoon. We're all kind of busy, and they were coming up to NY anyway." "Maybe it's some of the reserve Avengers?" "Heck if I know, Ned. Heck if I know." That afternoon, though, they kept their eyes peeled, MJ standing nearby, pretending not to be paying attention. Or maybe she was genuinely ignoring them. Peter could never tell. Though there were a few determined students left to watching to see who would be there to grab Peter Parker that day, a big portion of the usual crowd had drained away by the time the forewarned minivan appeared. Two adults sat in the front seats, one of whom Peter only knew by reputation, the other he was very familiar with. "Oh, geez," he mumbled. "It's Scott and Madame Van Dyne." "Ant-Man and Wasp!" Ned squeaked, his face lighting up. Movement in the back caught Peter's attention, and as he walked closer, the head of a brown-haired girl with a princess tiara became visible through the window. Bracing himself, he slid open the door and was promptly tackled by a small child. "Hi, Peter!" "Hey, Munchkin!" He laughed, pinwheeling his arms to stay upright. "Have you gotten bigger?" Cassandra Langs beamed up at him. Yep, Mummy measured me before we left. I'm a whole inch taller than last time. She's shitting up like a weed. Scott called from the front seat. Now, come on, you two. I don't want Leggy getting out. Right, we're coming. Oh, by the way, these are my friends, Ned and MJ. Cassie promptly released him in order to stick her hand out for Ned to shake. Scott waving and Van Dyne nodding from the driver's seat. I like your boots, Cassie told MJ, shaking her hand next, in the exaggerated manner universal to exuberant 8-year-olds. Thanks, I do too, the older girl replied. Peter grinned to himself. The boots in question came up to mid-calf, were a bright red, and had the same spiderweb design as his suit drawn onto them in black marker from top to bottom. He stashed his backpack in the third row, taking a second to give a pat to the dog-sized ant taking a nap amidst a small pile of shrunken luggage. All set? Van Dyne asked as soon as Peter and Cassie were both seated inside. Yeah, we're good, the boy told her, waving to his friends as he closed the door again. I didn't realise you guys would be driving in. Leggy doesn't appreciate flying, Scott said sheepishly as his partner joined the flow of traffic. By the time he sabotaged our first 2 aircraft, Hope decided we'd really be better off renting a vehicle and finishing the rest of the trip by highway. I like waving to people, Cassie informed Peter, leaning over to stage whisper. Sometimes they wave back, and sometimes they get really pale when Leggy crawls up next to me. Peter couldn't say he was surprised. Good for you, Munchkin. Just try not to let him eat anything important at the Avengers compound, okay? Okay. After they had gotten a few streets away from the school, Scott practically turned around in his seat in order to grin at Peter. So, a big old bird brain told me you got a bit huffy at Stark the other day. The teen immediately glowered at him. Come on, kid, you can share with us. Do you really sulk on the ceiling? I was not sulking. Natasha told me he refused to come down until Stark promised to stop sending learner drivers to school. Van Dyne commented offhand. Peter groaned. Cassie leaned over from her seat to pat him on the arm. It's okay. Sometimes I get mad at my parents too. There was no good response for that, so Peter just sighed and slouched as low as the seatbelt would let him. End of chapter, end of video. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Like that one. That one's funny. Oh yeah, this is just gold, isn't it? To explain the title for that last chapter, I think the odd cousins is the fact that, you know, ants and spiders in the fandom, they famously call themselves bug bros, even though spiders are arachnids. What can you do? That's my assumption anyway. Bye guys. Have a good day, night, wherever time zone you're in. Like, comment and subscribe, yada yada yada. Bye.